Hi friends, welcome back to the Common Sense Grandma. My name is Michelle, and in this video today we are making two recipes plus broth, all from one rotisserie chicken. Now the first recipe here is chicken a la king. I am using Betty Crocker's recipe, but I do make a few changes in that I double the mushrooms, I add chopped onions, red bell peppers, and no pimientos because I don't seem to ever purchase those. But to make this recipe, I took half of a rotisserie chicken, I deboned it, and that is what we're going to use in this recipe here. And I started out with a half a cup of butter and half a cup of flour. I'm trying to think what I did here. Make your roux. And then I added some onions, and I also add frozen mixed vegetables, about a cup, maybe a little bit more, and then mushrooms. I also doubled the mushrooms. And I'm going to cook that down for a little while. Just get that cooked up a little bit because the mushrooms and the onions, of course, are raw, and you do need to get your roux cooked there a little bit. And then I'm going to add 1 1/4 cups of chicken broth, and we're actually going to use the rest of that broth in tomorrow's recipe. Now, part of that broth was still frozen, so I do end up microwaving it and adding a little bit more because I didn't feel like the 1 1/4 cups was enough. So I added about another fourth of a cup. So I get that cooking down a little bit, and then we are going to add some half and half, about 1 1/2 cups. I wanted to make sure we have enough of the sauce to make it, since I added extra vegetables, just wanted to make sure there's enough sauce. I'm not sure how long I cooked this here. The video doesn't show it because I cut out a lot of it, but I would say probably 10 minutes. I tasted it. It needed more salt, and I will add some more pepper also. But this recipe is so simple. There we go. There's the pepper. And after that, we're just going to add the chicken and just let it cook for, I don't know, I probably cooked it for maybe 10 to 15 minutes on low with the lid on. And this is such a simple meal. I can, you can whip this up in no time at all. You can also add other vegetables that you like. So that's about half of a rotisserie chicken, and I just chopped it up in pieces. This is something you could do is buy rotisserie chickens, which I have done, debone them, and then just put them in bags in the freezer. And then you can just pull one out to whip up a quick meal. I actually think I made this one time from canned chicken that I had canned, and it was fine. It was okay. It's a little bit mushier, so I do prefer the rotisserie chickens. But for the price that you can get at either Sam's Club or Costco, it is such a good deal. So I do recommend that. I actually have, I think, two rotisserie chickens in my freezer whole. I just stuck them in there when I had purchased them, and we'll get to them one of these days. But on Sunday, I'd gone to Sam's Club and to do a pickup order, and so I just ordered a chicken. Wasn't sure what I was going to do with it. So this meal, I believe, was made on Monday. And then we're going to serve it with a salad that is just delicious. It's so good. By the way, I serve this chicken a la king on rice, and I was telling my husband that growing up, we actually would eat it sometimes on toast, which I do enjoy, of course. But there is your chicken a la king, probably 15 minutes or so. That's all it takes. Now, as far as this chopped salad, I think I do have a video of making the salad, but I will say I don't make it the same every time because it just depends on what I happen to have available. It is a peach. You're supposed to put two chopped peaches actually, but on this day I don't have any peaches. It's winter time, but I do have pears, and so I added a pear. Here I am adding the avocado, and I just made, I think, half a recipe of the dressing. Also in the recipe, it calls for tahini, but I replace it with olive oil. I do have tahini, I do use tahini, but I just don't think I would prefer having tahini in this salad. There I'm adding some cilantro, and then I will chop up some green onions. I do prefer it with purple onion. I have some, but I didn't feel like chopping them, and I have 2 packages of these green onions, so I thought I better just go with that instead. And I'm so glad we have this salad that night. It was just delicious. It's one of those things that uh, I just really enjoy. So here I'm making the dressing. We're going to use olive oil, honey, apple cider vinegar, Dijon mustard, and salt and pepper. It's as simple as that. And I do keep it in the refrigerator for a few days. In fact, we had another salad again last night, and I used the rest of the dressing, and it was just delicious. So, what I really like about getting these rotisserie chickens, going back to that, is I can get quite a few meals out of it. So, from this chicken, we're going to, then let's say on the next recipe, we are making Cajun chicken pasta the easy way. I've used Pioneer Woman Ree Drummond's recipe a few times. It is delicious, but it's a little bit more time consuming. So in the next recipe here, you're going to see how I make it a little bit simpler by using the rotisserie chicken. So there I'm just finishing the dressing, shaking it up, and I do end up using a spoon to stir it up. I felt like it was too thick. So I'm adding a little bit more olive oil, and that was perfectly fine. Here I'm adding pepitas. They're not called for in the recipe, but I do like them. Now some craisins, some dried cranberries that I think I got those from Azure Standard. They're just delicious. I add them to muffins. I add them to a lot of things, but they are very, very good in the salad. And there you see, there is our meal. Now this next recipe here, I thought I was filming and I wasn't. So in the pan there is butter, flour. I made a roux. I added about, I think, 1.5 cups of chicken broth, the rest of it. And here I'm adding cream, whatever was left in that carton. I would say not quite a cup. And then in the later part of the video, I do end up adding a little bit more. But in the pan there, I also have some red bell pepper. I added that Creole seasoning. Now that brand there is Zatarain's, and I have to say it tasted good, but it did not have enough seasoning, enough spice. Mostly all I tasted was salt, and so I like the other brand of Tony Kacheris. I don't know how to say it. That's my grandson. He's adding the broccoli for me to the pan of pasta. By the way, friends, that's a nice little tip. If you're making, okay, there we're adding the chicken. But if you're making a pasta dish and you need, like what I make Alfredo, if you need to add some broccoli, I just add it to the pasta while it's cooking in the last few minutes. So there I added the chicken. It's such a simple recipe, and I will have both of these recipes listed below. That is my grandma's colander. That colander has to be, I don't know how old. I, I know how old I am, so that colander is probably 60 years old, and I treasure it. I will not ever let anybody have it until it gets passed on to somebody else. Anyway, there is such a simple meal. It only took a few minutes. And friends, just, if you can, try to learn to just cook with your instincts. Take from other recipes and then make them your own. Now, I didn't feel like it was quite saucy enough, so I'm adding a little bit more half and half. And I'm not sure if I mentioned, oh, here we go. I'm adding in the parm. This is Parmesan cheese that I had in the freezer. And I do add just a little bit of parm because it is an Alfredo, but I didn't put that much. And then, of course, I can't cook without the blend, salt, pepper, and garlic. And I add a little bit of that. This meal was delicious also, but again, it did not have that Cajun seasoning like I like. I wanted a little bit more. And this other brand, the Tony Chacheres, I wish I knew how to pronounce that. I'm so sorry. It just has a lot more seasoning in it than so much salt. It does have salt, of course, but it's not too hot. And there we go with the rest of the dinner. So I hope you enjoyed these recipes. Here is the broth. I run it in the Instant Pot for 2.5 hours. That's all from one chicken. And I wish you all a wonderful week, and we'll see you again next week. Bye bye.